A lot in the news right now with Lauer, the Today Show. Do you think that'll impact the way people view the show at all, or maybe storylines in the future?
When it came time for everybody to eat the dessert, LeBlanc also just eats whatever's in front of him. Like, it's not even like he...
20 years ago, the world thought it knew Jennifer Aniston's story. Headlines turned private moments into primetime drama, and a single glossy photo spread supercharged a narrative that refused to die. For years, strangers tried to cast her as the heartbroken lead, the rival, the headline. But now, after 2 decades of noise, she's finally spelling out what the frenzy really felt like, how the coverage became a sport, how every word could be bent, and how she learned to stop letting other people...
You've moved on quickly.
Well, everybody has.
Do you guys still talk? You and Brad?
...write her life. This isn't a tale about who left whom or who won. It's about the machine that fed on her name and the woman who outlasted it. Because the plot twist nobody saw coming isn't scandal at all. It's perspective. And once you hear how the myth was built, the triangle looks a lot more like a mirage. But the spectacle didn't start with a breakup. It started with an image that changed everything. It didn't start with a confession, it started with a picture.
Dang it.
Not yet.
Not yet. It's not even over.
No, it's not. It's just starting.
Oh, I'm just, I haven't been out in a long...
One glossy spread, perfect lighting, artfully rumpled linens, smiles that look like Sunday morning, sold a fantasy of happily ever after that millions mistook for proof. Overnight, a private separation turned into a public 3-act play with fixed roles. The woman everyone thought they knew, the man in the middle, and the co-star cast as catalyst. Editors didn't need timelines when they had frames. They could point at those images and say, see, the story's already written. From there, the machine did what it's built to do.
He had a huge crush on you.
What do I do with that information now? What good is it to me now? Love that.
Whispers hardened into sources. Scheduling coincidences became motives. A glance at a premiere was repackaged as a coded message. And because the photos look like a life already in progress, breakfast, kids, laughter, the audience filled in the blanks. Betrayal, payback, winners, and losers. Simpler than real life. Louder than nuance. Easier to sell. That's the quiet power of a staged image. It blurs performance with reality. A curated moment becomes evidence.
I have chosen to make a traditional English trifle.
Wow, that sounds great. And what are you making, Monica? In case...
And the space between on-page fantasy and off-camera truth collapses. Magazine pages migrate to talk shows to message boards, and soon the internet is doing what the internet does, cropping, captioning, and circulating until speculation feels like consensus. By the time the facts catch up, the narrative has already calcified. What those covers never showed was the weather inside the storm. Headlines don't tell you what it's like when breakfast turns into a battlefield, when the checkout aisle prints a version of your life you don't recognize.
Okay, so the answer to that question for me is yes, I have. I spoke to a medium about 4 years ago.
When strangers decide who you are before you say a word. And when you do speak, the machine doesn't really listen. It hunts for a pull quote, one sentence, one raw feeling, something that can be clipped, bolded, and pinned to your name forever. Like tabloids love archetypes because archetypes travel. America's sweetheart, homewrecker, golden boy, labels that promise an easy read at a glance. They flatten real people into symbols so the plot never has to change.
The crazy thing about the Jen and Brad divorce is it really didn't end in 2005. Fast forward to many years later, these two have several kids together.
And once the roles are assigned, every new detail gets graded against the script. If she smiles, it's performative. If she looks tired, it's cracking. If he works, it's moving on. If anyone keeps quiet, it's confirming everything. And here's the trick most readers never see. Spectacle is self-fueling. The coverage creates the interest that justifies more coverage. A rumor becomes a headline. The headline becomes a panel debate. The debate becomes a timeline.
So this right here is proof that black people and white people speak a different language. So Jennifer Aniston accused Jamie Foxx of...
And the timeline gets quoted as history. The industry calls it momentum. To the person in the middle, it feels like quicksand. Even the calendar got rewritten. A months-long separation became a sudden twist. A planned photo shoot was reframed as confession. Publicists issued statements no one read past the first line. The machine didn't need clarity. It needed characters. And because the pictures made the fiction feel familiar, the audience leaned in.
Jennifer Aniston and Pedro Pascal spark romance rumors with 3-hour dinner. Are they more than friends?
They weren't reading updates. They were watching a soap opera with real faces. But pictures can't carry context. They can't tell you what was agreed to, what was already over, what was never anyone's business. They can't show the private conversations, the boundaries drawn, the long exhale after the door closes and the cameras go home. They can't show how it feels when your name becomes a headline magnet, how your silence gets narrated for you. So when Jennifer finally did speak, the press lifted exactly what it wanted and left the rest behind.
When I think about Big Daddy, you discovered the Sprouse twins.
I knew what those kids were capable of.
Then they were Ross Geller's son.
One line became the label, one moment became the meme. And for years, that single quote would be held up as the whole person, the whole feeling, the whole story. But that wasn't the whole story. One raw sentence, that's all it took. In a moment when her guard was down, she reached for language that felt honest in the moment, and the press grabbed it with both hands. That single line about a missing chip wasn't treated like a feeling. It was treated like a verdict. From there, the headline factory did its thing.
This is a very hot topic today, so apparently there are rumors swirling around the internet that Pedro Pascal and Jennifer Aniston...
The quote was clipped, bolded, and stamped on every angle. On the magazine racks, on morning shows, in the lower thirds of talk TV. Nuance didn't stand a chance. The context, the grief, the confusion, the private math of ending a marriage got trimmed away so the line could stand alone, louder than the person who said it. That's the alchemy of scandal coverage. A human sentence becomes a brand. Not her brand, their brand of her. It simplifies the cast list, keeps the rivalry alive.
Jennifer Aniston reveals she's made multiple attempts to get pregnant, but at age 53, she said she simply cannot have a child. Jennifer Aniston revealed that while her character...
And gives the story an easy chorus everyone can sing. And every time the machine needed fresh fuel, it pulled the same quote off the shelf and ran it again, as if the moment never aged and the people never changed. Meanwhile, the audience was trained to read every new frame through that line. If she smiled, it was shade. If she stayed quiet, it was confirmation. If she spoke, it was clapback. She couldn't breathe without the caption being written for her. The quote had done its job so well that it replaced her voice.
This is hair gems. Hair gems, uncut gems. Sorry. These are cute.
What got lost was the reality that Heartbreak is rarely cinematic. It's paperwork and whispers. It's dividing furniture and futures. It's trying to be kind while you're also trying to be okay. None of that photographs well. So the media stuck to what did. A single stinging sentence that could carry 1,000 headlines and none of the weight behind them. And still, the machine wanted more. When new photos landed, they were arranged like puzzle pieces to fit the quote.
You are extremely talented, I have to say. And you go from like a Marvel film to...
When no photos landed, anonymous friends filled the space with guesses. Momentum created proof. Proof created more momentum. The loop became the story. But off camera, a quieter truth was forming, one that didn't fit the soap opera template. The bitterness tabloids sold wasn't what she was living. And when she finally told that part, years later, it didn't sound like fire. It sounded like perspective. Because contrary to the script, the split never was that bad.
So that's a tremendous outfit. And the reason that's a tremendous outfit is you have tremendous legs. Fantastic legs.
And that line undercuts the whole myth. Here's the curveball the tabloids never wanted. Years later, she said the breakup never was that bad. Not a scorched earth ending, not a lifetime grudge, just two people closing a chapter that had run its course. Privately, there was a long call, real words, and a decision to be warm and respectful going forward. No fireworks, no villain arc, just adulthood. Quiet, complicated, and not very clickable.
Jennifer Aniston was spotted leaving a dinner with Pedro Pascal in West Hollywood, days after her ex-husband, Justin Theroux.
That single admission rewires the whole narrative. If the split wasn't a battlefield, then the triangle loses its teeth. The headlines need opposites, angel and antagonist, winner and loser, because black and white sells faster than gray. But her version was gray by design. Gratitude for the years they had, clarity about why it ended, and no appetite for feeding the spectacle. In a world addicted to sides, she chose context. Of course, nuance doesn't trend.
Because your character Julie is so forward,
right?
I'm interested to know how you would make the first move.
So the media translated "we're okay" into secret truce, amicable into PR spin, and every friendly moment into a whisper of reunion. The reality was cleaner and less dramatic. Boundaries, civility, and a refusal to let the past be mined for ratings. She wasn't auditioning for a rematch. She was getting on with her life. And that's the part that rattles the machine. When the people in the story stop performing the roles the story demands.
The first season. Yeah, the first season, I had a major crush on Jen.
She didn't clap back. She didn't campaign. She just kept showing up, work, friends, chosen family, and let time do what hot takes can't, cool everything down. The myth didn't die in a single headline. It just starved slowly in the absence of fresh outrage. So if the split wasn't a soap opera, why did the soap opera keep running? Because the triangle wasn't about truth. It was about business. And business was booming. Follow the money and the myth makes sense. The triangle wasn't just a story. It was a product line.
Brad Pitt had to give Jennifer Aniston what after their divorce? This romance didn't last long, but it was so iconic in more.
Covers sold at the checkout aisle, morning shows filled segments, blogs farmed clicks, and advertisers got their impressions. Archetypes turned into inventory. Sweetheart, other woman, leading man. When the roles are that clear, you don't need updates. You just need a new headline that rhymes with the last one. That machine rewards heat, not truth. Nuance is bad business because it slows the scroll. So complexity gets shaved off until a living, breathing person can fit in a caption.
Jen's career, let's talk about it.
That wasn't a baby.
No, but you have sustained an enormous.
If she looks happy, it's revenge glow. If she looks tired, it's falling apart. Either way, you stay for the slideshow. The internet supercharged it. A rumor used to take a week to travel, now it can lap the globe before lunch. A post becomes a trend, the trend becomes a theory, and the theory gets embedded into timelines that look official, but are stitched out of guesswork. By the time corrections arrive, the narrative has already moved on to the next almost proof. At a certain point, she stepped out of the frame and named the pattern.
Apparently you were a little mean to him in high school.
A little mean. You made my life miserable.
I had no idea.
An essay pushed back on the idea that her body existed for public inspection, that a woman's worth could be resized by a tabloid headline. She called out the cottage industry built on reading her face for clues that weren't there. It wasn't a clapback, it was a boundary. And that boundary mattered because the fixation wasn't just on heartbreak. It was on ownership. Who owns the version of you that strangers think they know? Who gets to decide if a smile is joy or performance?
Who are you wearing?
Oscar De La Renta.
Gorgeous. Best dress. I almost wore a De La Renta.
Oh, did I get that? That never happened.
Right now.
Ooh.
What are we doing?
The machine answered those questions with metrics. She answered with refusal. Still, the loop kept humming, fed by the oldest clickbait in the book. The baby watch. Every loose shirt became evidence, every vacation a hint, every silence a confirmation. That's where the spectacle cut deepest. Not in the breakup, but in the years of speculation that turned her body into a headline template. But that wasn't the whole picture either. One day, she shared the private fight behind all those rumors, and suddenly the tabloid story...
Oh God, don't make me cry. I won't. We won't make each other cry.
Okay.
Well, you're already crying.
Didn't look so clever anymore. If the breakup was the headline, the baby watch was the franchise. It outlasted seasons of TV, co-stars, even relationships. An endless loop of zoomed-in photos, red circles on stomachs, and captions pretending concern while chasing clicks. A loose sweater became evidence. A vacation became a hint. Silence became confirmation. It wasn't coverage, it was surveillance dressed up as curiosity.
I'm here because we told Jennifer to make the interview as awkward as possible.
For years, she absorbed it without feeding it. No denials for sport, no performative reveals. But there's a cost to being turned into a mystery box. The insinuation wasn't just about timing, it was about worth. As if a woman's story only reached its happy ending once the tabloid said so. As if her body could be publicly audited for milestones that weren't anyone's business. Then came the real-life detail the rumor mill never earned. The quiet, grueling reality of trying. Procedures, appointments.
We saw this video of you like kind of in a protest scene and you got oil thrown on you. Was the Bottega bag real?
Hope measured in weeks, then in numbers, then in maybes. She didn't drop it like a twist. She shared it like a boundary. Suddenly all those breathless, is she or isn't she? Slideshows looked small. They weren't just wrong, they were cruel. That revelation reframed the whole decade. The headlines had insisted on reading her midsection like tea leaves. The truth was a private medical battle the internet never saw and never deserved to judge. And with a few calm sentences...
Hey! What the hell are you doing? I'm not standing next to him.
I didn't do it.
She flipped the script. Her body wasn't a cliffhanger, and her life didn't require anyone's approval to be complete. It also revealed how the machine works. Tabloids didn't need facts, only the possibility of a future they could sell every quarter. The cycle was profitable precisely because it was unsolved. The minute a woman owns her story, chooses her path, defines her family, or says, that chapter has closed, the mystery evaporates. And so does the business model. Owning that story wasn't about clapping back, it was about refusing to be drafted into someone else's narrative arc. She didn't promise updates. She didn't offer timelines. She replaced speculation with a sentence that didn't invite replies. I decide what my life means. And that's why her words now land with a different kind of weight. Once you know what was happening off camera, the tabloid tone reads like a parody of empathy, a chorus that never listened.
To deal with it. You know, nobody had ever dealt with that. And
which is exactly why, when she finally called the coverage a sport, it didn't sound bitter. It sounded accurate. But she didn't stop at correcting the past. In 2025, she widened the lens and explained how she learned to live outside the frame. 2 decades later, she finally names the game. Not with a scorched earth rant, but with the kind of steady clarity you earn by outlasting it. She talks about how coverage turned competitive, how it felt less like storytelling and more like a sport with winners and losers.
You're late.
Crouching.
I'm such a big guy and I get in the way of the...
What are you getting in the way of? Oh.
Back then, strangers treated her life like a weekly serial. Now she can say without flinching that the spectacle ran on appetite, not accuracy. She admits the timing was raw, she was vulnerable, startled by how fast private choices got repackaged for public consumption. And she remembers what it did to language. Every sentence became a risk. Say too little and silence becomes a headline. Say too much and a fragment gets clipped into a slogan you never intended.
Have you heard, and I mean this with all due respect, have you heard the rumors about Brad Pitt joining the cast potentially?
That's why interviews still carry a hum of dread. Will a single line be bent into a lifetime label? But the most important shift isn't what she critiques, it's what she claims. She refuses to be the genre the press built for her. No more being drafted into roles she didn't audition for. No more obligation to feed the cycle, just because the cycle is hungry. Instead, she draws a clean border around her life and points to the work, the friendships, the projects, the hours that don't trend, like a lighthouse through the fog.
Where you and Jennifer run into each other so they can take their picture.
I'll run into Jen. She's a good friend.
There's also a tenderness in how she tells it now. Not a gotcha tone, not a victory lap. Perspective. She can hold the messy parts without letting them define her. She can love what those years taught her and still call out the harm. She can acknowledge the sting and still choose grace. That balance is the part the gossip engine never predicted. It sells drama. She practices proportion. And there's a small, crucial recalibration in her language. The story isn't what happened to her.
You've moved on quickly.
Well, everybody has.
Do you guys still talk? You and Brad?
It's what the machine did with it. That distinction gives her room to move. It lets her be a person again. One who made decisions, survived the echo chamber, and learned how to keep her voice intact when the microphones get loud. So when she says it was one for the memoirs, it lands differently now. Not as a tabloid cliffhanger, but as a chapter she owns, edited by time, annotated by boundaries, and filed under lessons learned. The headlines wrote their version. She's writing hers, and while the press keeps searching for a sequel...
Okay, here we go.
Perfect.
Got it.
Perfect.
Her life quietly writes a different kind of next chapter. One built on chosen family, low drama days, and a softness the cameras don't catch. Away from the headlines, her days got smaller in the best way. Fewer red carpets, more dinners at home, fewer statements, more boundaries. She kept her circle tight. The friends who don't need a selfie to prove they were there. The work partners who care more about the draft than the gossip. That's where she put her attention. On the rooms where the story is something you make.
More people famous from TikTok, famous from YouTube. It's almost like it's diluting the actor's job.
Celebrities don't like influencers.
Not something made about you. Career-wise, she doubled down on projects that feel like a choice, not a reaction. The schedule is deliberate. The teams are handpicked. When she's promoting, she talks about craft instead of conflict. When she's off the clock, she doesn't perform off the clock for strangers. That's not secrecy, that's sanity. The machine prefers access on demand. She prefers a door that locks. Her personal life also stopped being public property. If she's seeing someone, that's a detail, not a headline.
Danny Cross, guys. Danny Cross. Hi, Jennifer. Move. How you doing today? Excellent.
If she isn't, same. The point isn't to feed speculation, it's to starve it. She learned that a relationship can be real without being content, and that keeping something private isn't hiding, it's protecting. The friendships are the ballast. Low drama, high loyalty, built over years of being there when the cameras aren't. Birthdays with the same faces. Vacations where nobody posts the view until everyone's home. Laughter that doesn't need a caption.
All of you. I sleep with everyone on the show. I'm in. All right.
It's doing in real life.
I'll be waiting to hear from my agent.
The older she got, the more that felt like the win. Not who shows up for a premiere, but who shows up when you're quiet. There's a rhythm to it now. Work, home, dogs, scripts, long walks, a quick escape when the city gets loud. None of it trends, all of it matters. And when she does step into a spotlight, it's because the work earned it. An arc she cared about. A story that said something, a set where she felt safe. That doesn't mean the noise disappears, it just means it can't run the place anymore.
The wedding of Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston on July 29, 2000 was nothing short of a fairy tale.
The tabloid economy wants perpetual cliffhangers. She's living in chapters. And the next one isn't about relitigating the past. It's about closing the file on a saga that outlived its usefulness and naming what still lingers around it. Every saga needs an ending, and this one finally got its paperwork. Years after the frenzy peaked, the last legal pages were filed, stamped, and shelved. No cliffhanger, no grand finale, just signatures that made official what had been true for a long time.
For years, the world has speculated about Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt's whirlwind romance. Their highly publicized...
The triangle was a relic, not a reality. Headlines tried to squeeze drama from the margins. Old grievances, fresh filings, a lingering dispute over a vineyard in France. But that noise read more like aftershocks than a new quake. The story that once swallowed pop culture had shrunk to a footnote in a court docket. And here's the telling contrast. While the outside world obsessed over how the other branches were untangling, she wasn't waiting on anyone's closure to live a complete life.
In April 2005, 1 month after Aniston filed for divorce, a set of paparazzi photographs.
The legal punctuation on someone else's story didn't change her day-to-day because she'd already moved from spectacle to substance. Work chosen on purpose, friendships chosen for peace, boundaries chosen to last. The triangle might have fueled magazines. It never fueled her future. So yes, the file is closed enough for everyone to stop reading into it. There may be residual headlines. There always are when business meets history. But those belong to a different narrative, with different names on the paperwork.
What? Yeah, I hated her. She was horrible to me in high school.
Her chapter doesn't require their epilogue. She can wish people well without being written in. And that's the quiet victory the tabloids never predicted. The ending isn't a scandal, it's proportion. The myth didn't explode, it deflated. What remains is a woman who kept her voice, kept her circle, and kept going. Which brings us to the only question that still matters. If a headline doesn't get to define you, who does? For 20 years, headlines tried to cast Jennifer Aniston as a character in a drama that never stopped airing.
To many, this just seemed like an ordinary photo of Jen Aniston and Brad Pitt vacationing in the Bahamas together. But what many didn't know is just 7 days after.
But the real twist wasn't a scandal. It was authorship. She outlasted the noise, named the machine, and chose a life that doesn't depend on cliffhangers. Work that matters, friendships that hold, boundaries that don't need a press release. The triangle was a mirage built for magazine racks. The woman behind it kept moving. If there's a lesson in her arc, it's this. You don't win by arguing with the narrative. You win by making your own. She did. And once you see how the myth was assembled, the only story left worth following is the one she's writing now.